Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Depending on where you're watching me from. This video will try to discuss the reoccurring issue between husbands and wife of African origin who live in the West, especially Nigerians. In the search for greener pastures, a lot of our men, our Nigerian men, who traditionally leave their homestead in Africa and venture into the various parts of the world in search of greener pasture. Then, as tradition demands, after some years of struggle and hard work, and then all that it comes with, after years of plowing and plowing, trying to regularize your stay in terms of immigration, in terms of becoming financially stable and economically viable. Eventually, a lot of these men, Nigerian men in the diaspora, and when I say diaspora, I'm actually referring to the countries of the West, and those would be Western Europe, people who live in Australia and New Zealand, Nigerians who live in the United States, in Canada, United Kingdom, the Republic of Ireland. These are the most westernized countries of the world. Most times when people are talking about the West, they are referring to these countries that I've mentioned. And what I'm about to talk about today is mostly derived from the activities of the marital activities of Nigerian people who live in these countries, especially first-generation immigrants. This topic has become very trendy and topical because of its reoccurring value. Same storyline, same event, very similar factors and context, and very similar nuanced situations. So I thought it wise to once again lend my voice to this issue. So it is centered around the tendency of African marriages, mostly contracted in Africa, to crash as soon as the couples involved in this marriage arrive in the West. As we all know, in Africa, there's a lot of incentives to keep the marriage intact. There's a lot of incentive for long-lasting and viable marriages. And number one factor why this is so is the presence of family. Usually, marital issues in Nigeria, especially in the part of Nigeria that I come from, are resolved most of the time with the help of the extended family. So there's also a lot of social norms and factors which the couples involved are forced to observe, such that it will help to ensure a very durable marriage. There's also the societal values and societal and social considerations to make. I mean, we are all guided by our social environment. In Nigeria, for instance, the basic social nature of Nigeria is the nuclear family at the most basic level. So the incentive to walk away from your marriage, it's very limited because of the socio-economic nature of the environment. The government are not going to pay you for being a single mother. In Nigeria, the government is not going to pay you for having a child like they do in some Western countries, which they call child benefit, which I agree has its own advantages, but it also comes with its own unintended consequences, such that if a woman knows that she will still be taken care of, or she will still be paid, or she will still have a source of governmental income, if she's no longer with husband, will have a lot of incentive to walk away from her marriage for every little excuse. And then on the men's side, it is a thing of pride to stick around with your family and to help raise your children. So everything that I'm going to say in this video, it's a kind of general, based on generalities, because in every situation exceptions must exist. Excuse me. But you don't talk about life or plan about life or observe life based on the exceptions or based on the exceptional situation. You do so based on what is generally obtainable. So in the West, there's a lot of incentive for you to crash your man. In fact, the government will pay you if there's no man in the house. You get a lot of benefit if there's no man in the house, which actually incentivizes women in the West to instead of trying, or instead of looking for ways to amend the cracks in the marriage, it will actually incentivize them to walk away at the flimsiest of excuse. So after years of struggle for the man who immigrated to the West in search of greener pastures, he goes back home as expected by family and friends to go take a wife, which is a very, very honorable thing to do, because as they say, one of the major criteria for a marriage to actually stand a chance of working, the people involved in marriage should actually share certain social norms and cultural norms. They should be able to understand life, at least from a general, from a very similar perspective. Probably not exactly the same, but with similarities in their understanding of what is expected of them. Marriage. So usually what happens is that these Nigerian guys will go out abroad, they will toil, they make something out of their life, eventually doing mostly menial jobs, like they will work as janitors, they will work as care assistants, they will work as cleaners, they will work in shops as cashiers, and all those kind of low-paying jobs that will get you by, but wouldn't necessarily make you wealthy or rich. So after 10-15 years, he goes back home. He goes to his village, wherever he's coming from. He marries a woman who would usually be probably 10, 15, sometimes 20 years younger than him. And the woman will readily go with this guy, will readily agree to marry this guy. But from my findings, it's easy to see that one of the major reasons why these girls would agree to marry these guys who are coming from abroad is because of, a chance at a better life. Because usually the expectation is that the guy will have to do what? Organize for the wife to join him over there. So in the beginning, everything is fine and cool. The girl's family will be happy. The guy will also be, ecstatic, because he believes he has found the wife. Finally, he now stands a chance at making his own family, while at the same time giving them a better life. So initially, the wife stays back in Nigeria, while the husband goes back to his abode to prepare for the wife to join him. It takes a couple of years for that to happen, a couple of millions involved, because it's not cheap to relocate someone. So after, say, 2-3 years, the wife joins him over there. Still, the guy is the breadwinner. So the breadwinner arrangement is such that in the African context or in the Nigerian context is such that the guy will cater for his family financially and otherwise. So he's still doing this menial job. He sends the wife to probably a medical school, to a nursing school, so that she will be able to gain some skills and be able to work in industries most suitable for first generation immigrants. So the whole intention, being a man, I know how logical men think. I know how we observe life. So the idea is for the woman to come, gain some skills, and then start making money. It's a kind of investment for the man. You can call it a kind of an investment for the man, so that as soon as she starts making some money, as soon as she gains some valuable skills and start making money, as the wife, you'll be able to financially help the man, help the family overall. Usually what happens in the first few years, the marriage is stable, it's mutual respect, everybody knows their duty, everybody is expected to do what they're expected to do, and there's no hassle. 2, 3, 4 years down the line, the wife graduates and she's now a nurse. And this usually happens when nursing is involved. She's now a nurse, she starts earning a relatively higher salary, an amount of money more than all the man earns from his menial jobs. And this is actually, at this juncture, is when you find out or when you dictate that the marriage will begin to have cracks. Because the very nature of women, whether we would like to admit it or not, is hypergamous. Women are, their innate wiring is such that, or the biological wiring is such that they expect a man to pay their bills, expect a man to take care of them, they expect a man to be the breadwinner. It's innately wired in them, even though some of them would deny it. But we don't, when you have this kind of discussions, you look at anecdotal evidence and then you also look at empirical evidence. Nowadays, people can say whatever they want, but you look at observable realities. There's nothing wrong with being hypergamous, by the way. You can't change the very nature of people on how they were created or their expectations. So, the cracks will start showing. The woman is she's now the breadwinner, at least at the financial level. She also has family in Nigeria who expect some goodies from her. Because if you are coming from the part of the world where I come from with the level of poverty available, if your daughter is abroad and then she's making a relatively good living working as a nurse, you would expect for her to, cater for you, for the parents, for the siblings financially. And then being a woman or being hypergamous, because of her innate wiring, that has a lot to do with hypergamy. Now she sees herself as a breadwinner. As the man, you're no longer leading, because being a leader, being a captain of a ship, or being the leader, the head of your family requires some financial responsibilities. In fact, you are expected to foot the giant part of the bill in your family for you to maintain your role as the head. Once you try to dislodge this arrangement, usually what happens is that all hell is let loose. Now, the man feels emasculated because this woman doesn't listen to her anymore because she's paying most of the bill. One of the basic criteria for her to remain submissive, it's if you, as the man or the husband of the house or the head of the household, to cater for her, to provide for her. Once that tide turns, it doesn't work anymore. But some of us men, we don't, because of the contemporary Disney doctrine that is now prevalent, we tend to forget about what reality dictates. So we think we can still rule the household, we can still head the household while she's footing the bill. Naturally, it's an imbalance. So they start fighting. And then the wife will also, being a hypergamous human being susceptible to hypergamy, will now start looking down on the guy because, she's earning more than him. And the wife goes out, she's a nurse. Now, being a hypergamous human being, is expecting to be with a man who earns considerably higher than her, probably a doctor, a lawyer, someone who earns more than her. And that's the basic criteria to keep her submissive. The guy needs to be earning more than her, But now she doesn't see you, or she doesn't need you anymore, because being a woman, she doesn't want to pay your bill long term, because women are not formulated to pay a man's bill long term. A man can do it for the rest of her life, care for her and her family, without complaining a lot. But once the tide is turned, the woman doesn't want to do that. And then that's where the disrespect creeps in. So the hypergamous nature will begin to manifest, because now you are now a riffraff. She doesn't look up to you anymore, because now she's earning more than you, probably paying most of the bills in the family, and she's not happy about that. Now you're in trouble. The next thing, you start fighting, you start calling the police, you start involving the police in your marital affairs. Like this is something that wouldn't happen in Africa, because you wouldn't call the police for some marital issues in Africa, and then the police wouldn't actually, handle it the way Western or European police or legal system would handle it. And there's no family around, there's no uncles to call upon to come and arbitrate over the matter between the two of you. In the West, the hyper-individualistic nature of existence makes it imperative that you guys are on your own. To involve the state probably will convince her to get rid of you. That's when divorce sets in. And usually what happens is what? The man is kicked out of the house. Probably that house was paid for by him. You remember, he has stayed abroad for like 10, 15 years, far longer than the woman probably bought a house. You get kicked out of the house. The woman takes over. The woman probably gets a restraining order that stops you from, accessing what used to be your house and probably your children. And then it's a very agonizing situation. It becomes a very agonizing situation for the guy. Men, we are logical human beings. Women are emotional human beings. So you look at the whole situation from the point of view of an investment that has gone wrong. So in the States, mostly in America, according to a research done by Professor Remy Ilona, who is a research fellow at in one of the universities in California, he found out that 90% of marital issues, or 90% of deaths between married couples that occur in America, happens in Nigerian households. That's a very staggering figure. And it usually, most of the time, a nurse is involved. That's the woman being the nurse. So this is the usual dynamic. And it happened all across the West. And it has to stop. And it was not going to stop if we don't call a spade a spade. This is not an avenue to bash anyone, man or woman. This is an avenue to talk about the remedial avenues that we can follow, or the solutions that we can proffer to ensure that at least these issues, reduce them to the minimum. So this video is especially made to young men, old men, with the intention of going back to Nigeria to go get a wife and bring her over. If you are listening to me, I want you to listen carefully. This is not an avenue to blame people. or to throw blame games around. It's an avenue to listen attentively and be pragmatic about how you plan your life. Now, I also would like to talk about the exceptions, because some of these marriages actually work, like marriages where the husband have gone for greener pastures abroad and then eventually went back home to bring the wife over. Some of them have produced very fruitful, happy marriages. But I have this to say to you as a man with the intention of going back to Nigeria to go get a wife. The chances that your situation, the chances that your own experience will be different is very, very low. Our daughters are not raised the same way our mothers were raised. Times have changed with the advent of social media, with the advent of new wave feminism and everything, with the advent of greed, with the advent of Instagram, things like that. Times have changed. That girl that you're going to marry also has her own responsibilities. She has a family that she was going to care for. She has probably a very poor father, very poor mother, who are looking for economic salvation. So you coming around is an avenue for them to explore the opportunities. So I would advise you to abandon ship. Don't start what you cannot finish. Don't go there. If you'll have to marry her, let her stay in Nigeria. That way it solves two problems. Letting her stay in Nigeria comes with its own problems, we understand that. But it's going to be more agonizing for you to spend millions of naira to bring her over, and then she will betray you, or she will get involved in activities that will look like betrayal to you. Because you must remember, she has responsibilities, and a lot of people are looking up to her to help them out. And you must remember, there where you are living in the West, you are a nobody. You are doing menial jobs to survive. And the woman's loyalty, most of the time, not all of the time, lasts as long as you are the breadwinner, as long as you are providing, as long as you are being the head financially and economically, most of the time, with exceptions. But you don't plan your life based on the exceptions. You plan it based on the generalizable event that occurs. So you need to take note. So prepare yourself for that. I would advise you, from the people that I know personally, I always heard them, don't do it. Don't go there. It's a recipe for disaster. For the girls, we understand that it's not easy. The economic hardship in Nigeria is biting. Everybody wants to get out there to better their family, as expected. And as a girl, it's a noble thing to do. As an unmarried young woman, it's a noble thing to do. But it's better for you to find a way to get yourself out there instead of riding on the back of a guy who has struggled 10 to 15 years to go and ruin his life over there. You wouldn't even have a justification for doing that. All your explanations won't even justify the action in the event that if let's say you do the same things that I've explained so far. Let everybody stay on their lane. This has to stop. This has taken a lot of people's lives. This has destroyed a lot of families. This has made a lot of children homeless. This has made a lot of children fatherless. And you know what happens in a household with children where there's no father figure? It's a recipe for disaster. In the West, it's a recipe for disaster. Gang-related violence, juvenile delinquency, teenage pregnancy, school dropout rate is highest amongst families without a father figure in the West. It's killing the black diaspora family in the West. Because most of the families are without fathers because of this narrative that I've just relayed to you. Because the men are actually the ones who instigate this whole marital arrangement by going back home to go. So I'm actually going to focus on the men. Don't do it. Don't do it. Let her either stay in Nigeria or you look for Nigerian women who already migrated to the West and marry. The ones at home, leave them there. The incentive for them to ruin your life is there. And it's not necessarily because they are bad people, because they are wicked. No. The pressure from home for them to, fulfill several and so many economic demands is just too high for them to stay with you and pay your bill for you as the man. So don't do it. Don't do it. It's getting out of hand. It's getting out of hand. Our people who live in the West will tell you, this is not a bashing session. This video is not to blame anyone, but it's to warn our brothers with the intention of importing or bringing their wives over to think really hard, to check and vet these women very well. Look into their family. What is their family background and history? Because when this shit hits the fan, when you start blaming her for ruining your life, for betraying you, no one cares. So the ball is in your court. Don't bring her over. Not because you're wicked, nothing personal. It just doesn't work most of the time, especially nowadays. So don't buy problems with your own money. Don't drive the final nail on your own coffin. Don't shoot yourself in the leg. Don't do that. So don't do it. Don't do it. It doesn't work. It comes with a lot of headache. It comes with a lot of headache, I promise you. And it's not because these women are bad, no. It's just that there are incentive for it not to work. It's just so big, so numerous. There's no social stigma on divorce over here. People do as they want. We don't have those societal or social safety net that guarantees that at least most of the time that our marriages work in Africa. Over here in the West, we don't have those things. Don't do it. Don't do it. That's my advice to you. Thank you very much for watching this video. And please don't forget to like this page or follow this page. And then for similar videos in the future. Thank you very much. We also have a YouTube channel. The link to the YouTube channel I will leave on here, so you can click and also subscribe to the YouTube channel for similar videos and other videos that I've made over the years. Thank you very much for spending your time and watching this video, and I'll be glad to produce similar type of content in the future. Then I hope that you would always come around and watch these videos and learn, and then leave your comments and tell us what you think about it. Thank you very much once again. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Bye.